Forward to the Hey everybody, welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm super excited to introduce you to our new guest today. Thanks so much for being here, Mark.
Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to spend a bit more time with you, Caitlin. I love your energy, but more importantly, I'm very excited to be a guest on your podcast, and thank you for allowing me to join you today.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit more about, and I just also want to mention our first call, there was a lot of really fun energy as well. So for
It
all of our
was.
listeners, they'll expect to hear that today and kind of absorb, some of our entrepreneurial spirit, hopefully.
Well, it's your energy. It's kind of catching, right? If you are in any way inclined to be an entrepreneur and you spend any time with you, I mean, you can't help but get excited about going out there and helping a bunch of people, right? So
Yes.
this is good. So I'm Mark Astor. I am a partner in Astor Simovich Law. I'm the Astor. My wife is the Simovich. And the mission of our law firm is to save families whose loved ones are suffering from substance use, mental health disorders, and failed attempts at recovery. So we speak to typically mums and dads from all over the country, as far west as Hawaii, as far north as New York and New Jersey and Massachusetts, and occasionally outside of the country. And they're calling us because they have an adult child, 25 to 45, with a long history of drug use and mental illness and treatment that doesn't work. And they're probably, not taking their medications. They may have had some involvement in the criminal justice system, maybe even an overdose or two. And they call us and say, okay, we can't do this anymore. We're done. We understand you might be able to fix this problem for us. And the answer is yes, but it takes time, right? Recovery is a process. It's not a magic pill. So that's what we do. And we're coming up on our 10th anniversary. February of 26 will be the end of 10 years. So it's been a journey, Caitlin, but that's what it is to be an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations on
Thank you.
10 years. Can you tell us a little bit about how you both got into this industry? Because I think what you do is obviously so needed in our country, but as you mentioned, everywhere across the world. I'm curious how you both kind of, figured out that this was your niche and how you could support communities.
So, not to age myself, but back in the mid 90s, right around the time of the OJ case, because I got interviewed about that, I was a very young, full of piss and vinegar prosecutor here in Palm Beach County, Florida. The state attorney's office hired me before I graduated law school. So that was kind of a big deal because when you're in your third year of law school, everybody's looking for a job. And I wasn't a particularly good student. But I had interned in the state attorney's office. I was really good in the courtroom, and they ended up hiring me. So when I went back full time in 1994, I was full of gusto, right? Let's prosecute everybody. But what I realized pretty quickly was that there was something seriously wrong with the system because I kept seeing the same faces coming back over and over and over again. And back then we didn't have what we have now, which is all these sort of specialty courts like mental health court, drug court, veterans court, where we could basically divert people out of the criminal system, get them the help they need so they didn't come back. Um, but the mandate today, and actually the mandate back in the 90s in our criminal system here in Florida, is to punish first and rehabilitate second. So if you don't have anywhere to send people other than jail, eventually that's where they're going, right? Which I don't think, in my experience, really solves the problem, which is, there's a behavioral health issue here. I left in 99 because I was really burned out. Did a lot of defense work, was pretty miserable, although I made a lot more money. I got married at 34. I was divorced at 35. And I really lost my purpose for a long time, both professionally and personally. In 2004, I went to DC for a year, went back to school, worked on a presidential campaign for a year, got my master's. I came back in 05 because the candidate I was working for didn't win. So, and then I worked on various family businesses. I was really miserable. In 2011, I took what was it 2011, 2000, yeah, that area. I took what I had left off the Awake crash and I ran off to California for 3 years. And I basically went out there and had a good time. I took the bar out there twice and I failed it twice. I came back in 2000 and right towards the end of 2014 because I had run out of money. I took the California bar one more time. I actually studied for it while I was in Florida and failed it a third time. So I studied for the Florida bar for 3 weeks. I studied for the California bar for a whole year and couldn't pass it. And meanwhile, people were saying, you're not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to be there. And then I had a chance encounter with somebody that basically changed the complete direction of my life. So there's a gentleman out there. His name is R. John Robbins. R. John Robbins probably not probably that's not fair. Does know more about being an entrepreneurial lawyer than pretty much anybody else on the planet. And he founded a company called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. They teach lawyers the business side of practicing law, which is not something they teach any lawyer anywhere in the country. So I got invited to go and see him speak at a breakfast meeting. It was like 7:30 down in Coral Gables. Now, based on where I live, that was like I had to get up at 4 in the morning to go and see him speak. And I wasn't originally going to go because truthfully, I came back from California, had nothing going on. I was pretty miserable, but I had this nagging feeling I had to go and see him speak. So I went down there. I watched him speak to a group of 20 lawyers about being an entrepreneurial lawyer. They all looked at him like he had three heads, typical of lawyers, right? They were such assholes to him, right? Because of course they're lawyers and they know everything, right? Yeah, that's why your ass is broke, right? You know nothing about business, or you wouldn't be at the meeting in the first place. But I really that worked for me, and it really resonated with me. I had a father that left school at 14. I had a mother that left school at 16, and my father was an entrepreneur. He built businesses. Some worked, some didn't. But that was, he believed he believed in taking responsibility for his destiny. And I when I saw R. John Robbins speak, I said, okay, this is who I got to work for. And I begged him for a job. And I spent a year working for him. I watched him, him and his team teaching small law firm practitioners, solo law firm practitioners about the business of being a lawyer. But what I didn't realize when I first went to work for him, and which I ultimately discovered, was that How to Manage a Small Law Firm, which is the company he founded, is a personal growth company for lawyers. Imagine that. And if there's ever a profession that needs personal growth, it's the legal profession. Trust me, I know these things, right? But more than that, their underlying philosophy is that financial growth has to be preceded by personal growth. And basically what happens, I spent a year working there, and I finally realized that the reason I was pretty miserable was because I hadn't taken 100% responsibility for my life, both personally and professionally. And as I decided at the end of that year, I was going to go and open up my own law firm. I had a lot of close family members and friends who had behavioral health issues. And I said, okay, that's who I'm going to help. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I said, okay, that's who I'm going to help. And in February of 2016, without any money, pretty much broke, I sat myself down in the local library here in Boca. I got the cheapest business cards I could get made on Vistaprint. And I started to just call people. I said, let's go for lunch. Let's go for coffee. I hadn't lived in Florida in 3 years. I hadn't even practiced law in probably closer to 5. And so I ran around to treatment centers. I handed out my business card. They were like, we never heard of you. I'm like, not yet, you haven't. And it took 14 months before anybody called me with a behavioral health case. And in the meantime, I took other types of cases to pay my bills. 11 months in, I lost my dad. So he never got to see what we built, but it was a tough time for me because I just about had enough money to pay for his funeral. So it was rough. But I was able to get a small office. I met my now wife the second year. She had an office in the same building. And for basically the next 7 years, it was just the two of us working 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, doing the sales, the marketing, the legal work, meeting with the clients, running to court, everything. And then the last 2 years, well, two things happened. 18 months ago, I finally took 100% responsibility for my personal life and we got married.
Yeah.
But
Congratulations.
thanks. I couldn't do this without her. I mean, she's a brilliant lawyer, but she's got a real head for business and numbers, which I hate. So, but what was really interesting about my wife's background is that for a dozen years, when she was married to husband number one and raising her children, she lived in Massachusetts, and she had a very strong background in guardianship, which traditionally had been used for elderly people. But we said, well, we don't want to work with elderly people. That's not our target audience. I wonder if we could use the guardianship statute for these behavioral health cases that we're dealing with to give families much more control of what is typically a completely out of control situation. So we started to use guardianship, and it became it's to this day, we do more guardianship than ever before. I mean, because it's such a great tool. Of course, there are other lawyers out there now trying to do the same thing. And then their clients call us when they drop the ball on the case, because you can't it's very different when you're dealing with behavioral health issues
Yeah.
with an elderly person. So the last 2 years we've staffed up, which is why I can now sit with you, Caitlin, for an hour and not actually be bothered too much, right?
Totally.
We built out our team. There's now 12 of us. Um, we're having a record year, and we're planning to help a lot more people next year. But we still, at the end of the day, we're still very mission driven. The mission hasn't really changed. You know, we have a set of core values that everybody has to buy into on the team, and a number of our staff members have themselves either dealt personally or with a family member dealt with a behavioral health issue, so they understand when our clients call us what they're really going through because they've been through it themselves. So yeah, this is what it is to be an entrepreneurial lawyer. So
Love it.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Mark. I love hearing your story. Every time you share it, I learn something more about you and how you approach business. And I love how you shared one moment, one person can really change the trajectory of our whole lives. That's what I say on this show all the time. It's happened for me time and time again, whether it's a client, a coach, someone that's hired me over the years, and their perspective just totally opens up like a whole nother portal to a new world. And I also love what you shared about where you were able to find the guardianship and really utilize law in a more innovative way, that had never been used before. This is exactly the type of stories that I want our listeners to hear so they know
yeah.
it's
I mean,
true.
there's been a couple of things. You know, ironically, in the last year and a half, we actually went. So we actually joined How to Manage. I joined How to Manage not as an employee, but now as a client. So we work with them. They've been helping us to build out the team and get more control of our finances because as the business grew, you know, having financial controls is really important because, well, how do you know when to hire? How do you know when to hire staff, or if you can even afford to hire staff? Well, your numbers, right? If you do your numbers right, they don't lie to you. They tell you when your staff is getting close to max capacity or what you can and cannot afford to pay somebody. Or, you know, if they're actually what, you know, if you're getting a return on your investment, right? If you're paying somebody $100,000 a year, are they producing $300,000 or $400,000 worth of work? So all of those things are really important. But you know, we're constantly trying to innovate and figure out different ways to help people. I've added more resources to the firm. I have clinicians that are part of the team now, if families want them, to help us to find the right program, get insurance approved, all that other fun stuff. But I also have a retired cop on staff with a team of investigators because we get a lot of calls from people on the streets. They're missing, they walk out of treatment. Well, if I rely on law enforcement to go and find them, I may never find them. And it's not because they don't care, they just don't have the resources to go looking for people.
Right.
So I got to have a team of people that can do it for us because it's the difference between saving somebody and, you know, not saving somebody. So
Wow.
always trying to figure out different things. How do I reach more people, right? How do we refine the message? How do we give the client a better experience?
Hmm.
So I think when it comes to being an entrepreneur with a business, you have to keep working at it. You
Yeah.
do it. You can't just say, okay, I'm done now. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious to know, like, in your line of work, would you say you have multiple clients because you may have like the parents or the family, and then the patient or the person that you're directly looking for, or searching for, that's experiencing this firsthand? Is that how you approach it? Or do you really work for the client that you're directly looking for, pursuing the case for?
Right. So the client is typically the parents, but the adult
Okay.
child, even though they're not our client, obviously the goal is to work in their best interest. Because when somebody has a behavioral health issue, it's almost as if their brain has been kidnapped, right?
Yes.
They don't realize there's a problem. In fact, they're in complete denial. They think there's nothing wrong with them, and they're looking at the rest of the family like, "What's the matter with you guys?" Right? I'm perfectly okay. Really? You've been in and out of multiple treatment centers. You're smoking marijuana every single day. You have severe anxiety, depression. You can't function on a daily basis. You can't have an intimate relationship with anybody. And you think that's okay. I'm fine. My friends are doing that. I know. You're hanging out with the wrong friends. And
Right.
so they don't think there's anything wrong with them. So ultimately, it's about empowering the family to make a decision to save their loved one because their loved one simply can't make it.
Yeah.
They could, they would. So somebody has to step in. If not mom and dad, then who? You want the state of Florida to do it? They'll gladly do it. They'll either put them in the criminal justice system or the mental health system. But I'm going to tell you, you won't like what you get back if you get them back at all.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Like, thank goodness you all are here doing this work and really helping people. It's like you said, actually, in recent experiences, and some of my family members, like friends and family, also struggle with mental health issues and, medication and, staying regulated. And that was exactly what I experienced. I'm like, whoa, like this is not the way this person used to be. And how do you help them? Like, what are the resources? I'm up here in Pennsylvania. I've never heard anything like what you all do. And again, the innovativeness of what you're able to provide to both sides, of your clientele, or as you explained, the person that you're really helping rehabilitate their lives. Can you tell us some of the stories about the people that you've been able to help and what they've been able to achieve after working with you all?
Oh my goodness me. There's been so many. I mean, we get all different kinds of people. We might get, you know, like found like we have a found. Here's an interesting case. I'll try to be vague so I don't disclose anything. But one of my dogs just walked in. Hi, Harp. I just
That's
can't get
perfect.
I just can't get her to work. Oh, she's leaving. Okay. She doesn't like podcasts. She prefers when I'm working. Um, so I one of the things that I didn't realize would happen was I didn't realize we would have such a demand to help people in the legal system. They say lawyers are twice as likely to develop a behavioral health issue. And I don't know if it's a combination of the kinds of individuals that are attracted to the legal profession, and sometimes there's sort of this need to get love from the clients to say, tell them how brilliant they are and I love you and you're wonderful. We're not here to get love from our clients. That's not the type of relationship you should be having with a client, right? Any more than a doctor and a patient, right? I mean, it's professional. That's it. Um, but also it's a stressful profession, right? Clients call us, they want everything fixed now. Well, this has been going on for 10 years. I can't fix it now. There's a process to this. So it does tend to, it is a stressful, a profession. So we've put a number of lawyers into treatment. I had one lawyer, and I had two cases against him. He was a collegiate athlete, had two national championship rings, played. I won't even tell you a sport because it'd be too easy to guess, but had played for arguably one of the most successful coaches in his particular sport. Um, Played with other collegiate athletes that went on to have professional careers. He probably should have had a professional career, but unfortunately, um, his life got sidelined by substance use and mental health issues. And it was really sad to see because if you saw a photograph of him when he was actively playing in his particular sport, I mean, it's funny. I looked at the photograph. I said, wow, he looks like a young Tom Selleck, right? Tall,
Yeah.
muscular, good looking guy. And then I saw this guy in court and I'm like, he looks like he's homeless. Like, how is it the same person? They didn't look the same, right? I mean, it was really, really interesting to see, but that was an interesting case. I mean, we're able to get him into treatment. Um, but of course, it was affecting his marriage and his children.
Yeah. Oh,
But this is somebody who's going to be, I mean, they always say you don't cure a behavioral health issue. You go into recovery, right? Like you
yeah.
don't really cure cancer, you go into remission. So right now he's in recovery, but he's one step away from having a relapse. And of course, because he's a lawyer, you've got to a certain extent a little bit of an ego and some arrogance to go with it, right?
Yeah.
Because he thinks there's nothing wrong with him and he's got it. He doesn't got it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was really one that really stuck out from me.
Yeah.
But we've also had calls from I've had calls from judges who had adult children that had issues, either from Florida or out of state. I mean, it's
Wow.
really amazing that people that calls. I've had local politicians that reached out to us,
Yeah.
to help. So you never know who's really suffering, but when they hear about what you do, they reach out to us, and I'm happy to help. We've just had a call. I had a real interesting call yesterday from somebody. The family called. This lady was having an issue, and the police got called, and they realized that she was here illegally. She had been for several years, and law enforcement came down. They realized there was an immigration issue, and now ICE is involved. And but the problem was she had a behavioral health issue, so she ended up in a behavioral health hospital, and the family wanted us to step in and deal with that issue. And I think we're going to see more of that, right? I mean, so a very unexpected turn. I mean, I never thought that we would be getting involved in some of these immigration issues, and you know, truthfully, I don't want to. It's not
You know,
it's not what I do, and I don't want to get in. I don't want to get into a political debate with anybody, right? You know, I can see the news as well as anybody else,
yeah,
but we have a different type of mission. But here's somebody who is suffering, and
yeah,
she's been stuck in a behavioral health facility that she shouldn't really be in, and she's been stuck there for far longer than she's been there for a month. She shouldn't have been there for more than a week, but because
yeah,
there's an ice hold in her, right? Because immigration wants her, they won't let her go. So you've got this interesting dichotomy of a behavioral health issue that's now being sort of overlapped with an immigration issue,
yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, I hope that with the whole immigration thing, it doesn't deter people from going to hospitals and doctors when they need care,
I
right?
know it's horrible. And
Yeah.
that's what I think we as entrepreneurs face on a daily. It's like there is a lot of gray area with what you provide, especially and how life affects people. I mean, I'm sure after COVID, you also saw a large influx,
Oh my
of
God.
people dealing
That
with mental health.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that really changed things for us. So, um, when I first started doing this work in 2016, I would say that the bulk of the cases, if not 99% of them, were alcohol and recreational drug related.
Yeah.
Then COVID came along, and also we legalized marijuana here in Florida.
Yes.
Completely shifted the kind of the cases that we got. We went from really those alcohol, recreational drug cases to primary mental illness cases. And you throw a little legalized marijuana in, and it really can drive the mental health train hard and fast. And that's why the guardianship piece has become so important to us, because you really need to get control of somebody when they're suffering severe mental illness. I mean, you have to be able to make medical decisions for them. You need to be able to see their medical records. You need to be able to make sure they take their medications, restrict where they live, who they spend time with, take away their driver's license if you need to, right? Stop them from getting on a plane if you need to, so they don't leave. I mean, I had one woman that actually left the country. I had to send my investigator down to go bring her back.
Oh my
So,
gosh, yeah. And
so
she's probably not thinking clearly either. So it's like
really not.
she's just acting out of, like euphoria at times, right? In this state of mind. And then it's like, wait, where am I? Right? When
Yeah,
the poor
that's
thing shows
exactly what
up.
happened. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm in Mexico now. What do I do? Right?
Oh my gosh. And then she's like, how do I eat? Where am I sleeping? Like, what am I doing? I
How do
feel
I stay alive? I mean, crazy stuff like that. But fortunately, I sent John, my investigator, down there, and he was able to find and bring her back. But
my goodness. Yeah.
so we deal with, I tell families the one thing that's predictable about a behavioral health case is it's completely unpredictable, right? I don't know if they're going to have a good morning and a bad afternoon, good day, good week, bad week, right? But you eventually, as time goes on and the recovery process starts to take effect, the good days, and good weeks start to outweigh the bad. But, I always tell families recovery is a bit like the stock market, right? It goes up and down, right? But it does trend upwards over time. And that's what we need is time, right?
Yeah.
If they've been sick for a long time, it's going to take time to get them into recovery. It just does take the process, but you're going to need the authority to make the decisions that are going to be the catalyst for the recovery process. If you don't, then unfortunately things are going to continue, and as like with any disease, it's going to get worse and the person will deteriorate.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
nature of the beast.
It's so interesting that you all reached out to me when you did, and we touched base at this time because I'm sure, as you heard, or I can share now, and I've shared on the podcast, my mom fell ill a few months ago. Luckily, now she's fully recovered. But when she was ill, she was so sick. Like, I'm her only daughter, and my dad is passed, who was her legal, guardian before he passed. Now she's remarried, but it's not legal. It's not a legal marriage. So it was like very important for me to be a part of it. My stepdad and I have the best relationship. I've known him my whole life. So is my mom, obviously. So we were very lucky and fortunate that my mom was able to say, hey, ask my family, for whatever I need, because I'm clearly not well. Like, she was so sick for so long. Um, and it was really just a health issue. I can't even imagine, again, the mental state that can come in when we add things like drugs, alcohol, like happening at the same time in conjunction with probably another health issue, that some people are experiencing. And it totally changed my mindset on the medical industry and, how we approach things and the patience that comes with healing. Like I was just talking to her today. She's driving, like she's living her best life now, God bless her. But at one point we were like, what's going to happen next? What does this mean for her? And it just really takes time.
It takes time, doesn't it? And by the time, I always tell families, right? In order for this to work, you need to make a commitment of time, energy, and money.
Yeah.
And so they're like, really? So I'm asking to give us more time. Well, they've already been dealing with this for 5 or 10 years. So they're done, right?
Yeah.
Give me
That's
a
so
little more energy. We're exhausted. We don't sleep at night, right? It's going to cost money, right? You have to pay for a lawyer and treatment isn't free. We've already spent, everything we had and then some. You want us to spend more money? Why should we do that?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're asking them to make a serious commitment and maybe just a little bit of a leap of faith, in the hope that this nightmare is going to end, right? And it can end, and we get great results. I will tell you, for the families that don't work the program, you know, it becomes a frustrating process for them, because I tell families, Caitlin, this is a year-long journey, right? You don't have to hire my team for a year, but we know from experience, if you can keep somebody in recovery for a year, they have a greater than not chance of staying in recovery forever, right? The rest of their life. But because the goal is to get it right the first time. I always tell people I don't like repeat business. And they're like, you don't like repeat business? I'm like, yeah, because that means I didn't get it right the first time. Something went wrong. So we need to figure out what that is. But typically, a typical program of us is going to be got to do three to 6 months of some form of residential and partial hospitalization program. It just has to be that way. Anything less than that is probably going to be a waste of time, right? They got to be med compliant. They got to be, you know, they got to be abstinent, right? You can't be in treatment and using marijuana or whatever it happens to be, right?
Right.
After the 6 months, if we can get you to 6 months, then you got to work what we call a continuum of care. That means you go to meetings, you get a sponsor, you work 12 steps, you continue with some type of outpatient care. And if you can do that, for the following 6 months, now to a year, and now working on recovery just becomes part of your daily life, right? You're going to go to a meeting once a week. And you're having a bad day. You're calling your sponsor. You're going to continue to follow the 12 steps. And if you need to continue with some type of outpatient care, you do it. It's just how you live your life. I mean,
Yeah.
it just is. And I think and we've been very blessed, my wife and I, to have a lot of friends who are in recovery, and even folks that have been in recovery for 15, 20 years. Do you know, they go to at least one meeting every week. They're on vacation, they find a meeting, right?
Yeah.
My wife and I are going on a cruise at the end of the year. I was looking at some videos of that. Do you know you can go to a meeting on a cruise ship? They have meetings on cruise ships. So you can always find a meeting to go to, and they do. And it helps them to stay in recovery. And maybe they don't have a sponsor. Now maybe they're their sponsor, right? And they have sponsees and they're helping other people. So that's the recovery process. That's how it works. It's not a magic pill. But
Yeah.
if you can make the commitment of time, energy, and money, that's when the miracle happens. And it's really amazing to see. But it's
Yeah.
sad. It's sad when families either can't make the commitment, or they just get, they get 30 days in. Oh, he's fine, she's fine. They're in treatment. They're not using anymore. Well, of course they're not using. They're in treatment. They're taking their medications. But you let them go walk out. You're gonna be back to square one, and it will come raging back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever know I know my family, right? You ever see anybody who goes into remission from cancer? If it comes back raging,
Yeah.
much
So
harder than it did the first time.
totally. Yeah. It's horrible.
And that's what happens with recovery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Comes raging back.
Yeah, unfortunately, a few people I went to high school with experienced that, and it's not always, what you would hope for either in the ending, and it's horrible to see that
It
happen to
is
families.
sad.
Some are very young, like you said. 25 is the age group, the lowest age group, I'm sure, and I'm sure you've heard of younger and worked with younger as well, but that is so young. What a full life ahead of these amazing people. And I would love to know your perspective on the mental health side of this because a lot of what I've witnessed in my life, and honestly from firsthand experience, is sometimes if I'm drinking a little too much, I'm probably trying to cover something up that I'm not dealing with, right? Like, I think everybody could agree with that. At least people that have grown up around others that maybe didn't understand how to process emotions, as a childhood. Um, or as a child in our youth years. What's your perspective on that? And how do you think, this pandemic, I mean, up here in PA, and I feel like in Florida as well, the opioid pandemic is out of control. Like I'm right outside of Philadelphia. It's horrible. I feel for so many of these people. And I don't know if they would be as ill as they are if they weren't exposed to something so powerful like that either, you know.
Yeah, I think that mental health is going to be the number one crisis that we face as a country. I
Yeah,
really do.
I
There's
could
no
not
ways
agree more.
about it. I
Yeah,
mean, we all have these things, and it's great for work, right? I mean, I want to post a video, I can post a video, right? Um, but I think that technology sometimes can lend to certain issues of mental health, right? But I think it's going to be the number one crisis that we face as a country, really, is
yeah,
mental health. Now, sometimes it's a chicken versus egg, right? What came first, the drugs or the mental illness? You
right. That's
can't,
well said.
right? I don't always know, but I know that recreational drugs are very, very available, all over the country. Um, but people are really suffering. But I will also tell you that we see a lot of young people who at some very early age were prescribed the medication, right?
Yeah,
A lot of ADD, ADHD, right? Child's 5 or 6 years old, oh, we'll give him a medication. He can't sit still in class. Well,
yeah,
yeah, well, of course, by the time he's 15, 16, 17, his brain is so used to the stimulation, he or she cannot function without it. You turned a kid into a drug addict,
yeah,
right? And we see a lot of that. And, I'm not a doctor, but I'm telling you, it just doesn't seem right to be giving a child of 5, 6, 7 years old a medication because they can't sit still in class.
totally. I completely agree with
And
that.
I think there's some responsibility for the medical profession out there, right? We're creating a whole generation of people who have substance use and mental health issues that didn't need to have them. So I take issue with that, and I'm sure that will draw some flack. Um, but I'm telling you what I see, and it's a problem, right? And we're also, so here in Florida, we have what's known as the Baker Act. I would imagine you have a similar statute in Pennsylvania, which is basically a statute that enables the state to basically grab somebody and take custody of them and make them a ward if there's some type of mental health crisis, right? Last year, I think we Baker acted about 100,000 people here in Florida, and a lot of them were children, right? So you have children, in school who might say to a count or a teacher, "I don't feel well," or they may make a silly statement like, "I'm going to kill that kid," right? Or they post something silly on social media, and now they're basically getting handcuffed and walked out of school. Well, you think that doesn't traumatize a child? I mean, it does. So
Yeah,
we're seeing a lot of that. That was the one of the big shifts that we saw in Florida during COVID. People couldn't get in to see their doctors and their clinicians, and people that were in recovery started to relapse. And people were showing up at emergency rooms and calling 911 and 211 and showing up at these, behavioral health facilities, in the county, these county facilities, and they were getting sucked into Florida's mental health system and couldn't get out. And even to this day, we file about at least 150 cases every year to get people out of Florida's draconian, broken mental health system, right? They shouldn't be there. But I tell families, if you don't take control of the situation, the state will do it for you. They just will.
yeah. It's
That's
such
the way it works. The state
yeah,
will at some point just step in and take them away from you, and they'll take the position. Sorry, you've had 5 years to fix this and you didn't bother, right? You just swept it under the carpet and said, they'll be fine. Okay, we got it from here. We'll call you when we're done. Have a nice day. And I hate to be blunt, Caitlin, and but there's no way to sugarcoat this stuff. And I tell families, listen, if you want the truth, I'm your guy. If you want me to sit here and sing kumbaya with you, I'm not, because
yeah,
I know what happens. Because every year we typically do lose somebody. And that's not a fun call to get from a family. Sometimes they've been working with us, their loved one left treatment, they didn't want to follow up, they overdose. We've had families that we called, 6 months after the fact, they decided not to do anything. They've lost their loved one. We made 2 phone calls last week to families that we'd spoken to 6, 9 months ago. Both of them said, we're not doing anything. And both of them lost their loved one. Both
Oh
of them.
my gosh, that's horrible.
Heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking, not just for us, because we take the word personally, but my heart breaks for the family.
I
And I
know.
don't know why they decided not to do anything. And it's a no judgment zone when you call us, but it's
Right.
heartbreaking because maybe we could have saved at least one of those people. But listen, sometimes families are just done. They're just done, and it is what it is, right? They've been dealing
Yeah.
with it so long they can't take it anymore, and I
Yeah.
totally get that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes families are done. I know when my father passed, you know, I mean, we were done, and he was done too. So,
Yeah.
I get it. I really do.
Yeah.
All this stuff on a personal level. Um,
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that too.
we try to save everybody, but it's not realistic. But we can save a lot of people.
Yeah. And that's why we keep going, like, and that really is what is the push. Like, I love what you mentioned about the sponsors and the people that rehabilitate themselves to this level. And I'm sure it kind of comes down to like, if I had someone, which I do luckily have amazing entrepreneurial people that I work with that look up to me, and I'm like, well, if I quit now, like the whole train behind me might not make it, and it becomes not just about myself and my family, but also all of them, their families. And I can only imagine as a sponsor how that may also feel. It's like, okay, well, now I got like this team behind me. I feel the same thing about the people that work for me. It's like, if I didn't want to get up in the morning, well, it's not just about me anymore, like how selfish is that? To not keep going, it's not just about myself anymore.
I think that's what it is to be an entrepreneur, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I I feel like by finding a mission, by finding a bunch of people that needed to be helped and saved, I
Yeah.
saved myself,
Yeah.
right? Right. I found my passion. I found the mission, a reason to get out of bed and continue to practice law. I met my wife. I have two amazing stepchildren, right? But now we have a team there's 12 of us. And so, yeah, I have a responsibility to make sure, right, that we market the business, we sell enough legal services because they have to take care of their families too. So they rely on us as well. So that means we have to always try to figure out how do we help more people? How do we do it better? So the phone continues to ring because my staff rely on me, right? And so that's what it is to be an entrepreneur. It's not, as you build your business, it's no longer just about you, right? It's about your clients, your team members, your partner, whoever that may be, right? And so, right. And there are days when you're like, oh God, do I really have to get out of bed? Yes, right. You have to get
Exactly.
out of bed. You got it, right?
Yeah.
I think we talked about this when we first spoke, right? It's not about motivation, it's about discipline,
Yeah. I love that you said
right?
that.
It's about discipline and just and getting up and moving forward. And did we talk about the Rocky thing? I think we talked about
Yeah.
that famous
Yeah.
scene in Rocky 4, right? Where the son is telling Rocky, "Don't do this. You're making me look bad." And Rocky tells him, right? Basically, life is not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, right? And that's what it is to be an entrepreneur because you might have a bad month and you're like, oh God, I can't keep doing this. Well, listen, and I tell this to my stepson, there's only three ways to get money in life. You earn it, you steal it, or somehow it was given to you. You
Yeah.
win the lottery, you have a trust fund. Well, when my father passed, there was no trust fund.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go to jail. So that means I got to earn it, right? And I got to earn it and earn the right to earn it every single day. That means I got to get out of bed, right? And I got to keep moving. And I'm very blessed because I have a wife. And when you get married the second time, and hopefully you don't have to do this, Caitlin, you get it right
Thank
the
you.
first time.
I'll knock on wood. I saw you
You
knock
know,
on your
yeah,
head too.
yeah.
I'm the
Well,
same
you
way.
probably don't have wood up there, right? We get certain ages, there's a lot of wood up there, so I knock on it, right? But my wife and I share the same vision, and we share the same goals for what our life's going to look like and what our business is going to look like, right? And if we say, okay, we want to achieve this, well, in order to achieve that, we have to find a lot more people that need our help,
Yeah.
right? So our life is very mission driven. So um I always tell people if you can find a bunch, and I speak to a lot of lawyers all over the state because I became a Florida bar continuing education provider. And I tell lawyers when I get done giving them their spiel so they get their credit, I say, listen, you got to find, if you want to be happy, right? You have to find a bunch of people that need your help and then go out there and help them, right? And the universe will reward you. You'll make money. And, I think we also talked about Grant Cardone, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
Grant Cardone has this little booklet. He calls it the Millionaire Booklet. And he talks about the whole idea of money. Right? Money doesn't make you happy or unhappy. What it does do is it gives you freedom and the ability to make some choices in your life. So I tell lawyers, find a bunch of people that need your help. Go out there and do the best you can to help them. The universe will probably reward you financially, and then you'll have the freedom to do what you want, right? Maybe you want to take your significant other away on a fabulous holiday, or maybe you want to put that money and put it back in the business so you can help more people. Or maybe you want to start, like one of the things we've been doing, especially the last year, is we started to sponsor certain community events. We started
Oh,
getting some of that money back, right?
yeah,
So we could help the community.
yeah.
Wow,
It's
how amazing is that?
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's
So
exactly what keeps you going, right?
how
Like,
fun was that, right? We sponsored a 5K that was raising money for a not-for-profit because and it was founded on the principle there was a family that lost a loved one to an overdose. So we sponsored it. My wife likes to run, I like to watch, and we put our and meanwhile we sponsored the event. Our name was our logo was on the t-shirt, and there's hundreds of other people. How amazing is that, right? We got to share our passion and our mission and help the community. That's a beautiful thing, right? So that is one of our goals this year, and we're just about to sponsor another community event, right? So it's okay to give some of it back, but it's also okay to want more as well. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah. That was one of the things, Mark, that when we first talked, I really loved your passion and your thoughts around money and, how we perceive money. I find a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm sure you see this as well in what you do. It's fear around money and the guilt that can come up. And, like there's so many beliefs. And we as entrepreneurs, we face it every day. And then when our clients kind of finally come around to it and they're like, I think I have a money belief. I'm like, oh, thank goodness they're finally seeing it, you know?
Right. And I think that's part of what How to Manage really taught me, right? And we do have, can you hear my dogs?
Yeah, that's okay though. I have my puppy keeps crying too. I'm
You
like
want to shut
trying
my
to
door?
move
Or
myself.
just I think they're good. They're working security detail.
Love it. We
Either that
love
or they're agreeing. Either that or they're agreeing with us. But yeah, we all have beliefs about money, right? Oh, you shouldn't make too much because there's poor people in China who don't have any food and all that other kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you have to get past that. Um, and so this is what it is to be an entrepreneur, right? I think this is the fun thing. And at some point it's kind of like it's almost like the whole sponsor sponsee relationship. At some
Yeah.
point you get out there and you share, this is my mission, right? I'm an entrepreneur. And hopefully, there'll be somebody out there who's like us, who sat down in the living room or sat down in the library with an idea, and
Yeah.
for the first week or two, they got a bunch of no's, right? And then all of a sudden, somebody said yes. Cha-ching! Wow, there is somebody out there who actually, needs what I have to sell, whether it's a product or a service. And one yes leads to another one, and it's about getting out there and trying to figure out how to help as many people. So
Yeah.
that's why I was so excited when we met. I was like, wow, I get to go on Caitlin's podcast and share my journey.
Me too. Thank you so much, Mark. This has been amazing. The last thing I want to get your perspective on a big theme of my company and what I provide at Meraki Media Management, like my agency, but also within the podcast is vulnerability. Like I actually launched this show in 2020 when I think all of us may have been at a peak low in our lives.
Yeah.
Hence why I shared a little bit about like the numbing of emotions, at that time. I was also only 25. So right within, that age range that you serve. And one of the things that led me back to the podcast time and time again was the space for vulnerability that I had created for myself. I was very open on the show about what I was experiencing on my own life. And I know that that's what actually grew my company. It was like when I broke down to my naked mole rat self and stripped back all these beliefs, all the childhood stuff, and put it out there. finally people realized like who I actually was. And I think I also discovered who I was as well, which allowed me to create my personal brand that I have today. What's your perspective on vulnerability and what you're able to provide to your community through those stories that even you shared with us today and how it's gotten you where you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important, right? I mean, I see a lot of, I'll see like some of my colleagues on TikTok, right? They're making all these videos, they're dancing around and all this crap. And I'm like, no,
Right.
no, I'm not, and I've seen like criminal lawyers or divorce lawyers. I'm like, really? I'm like, I'm in jail, right? Or I'm getting divorced and I've been through a divorce. I don't need a lawyer that dances around on TikTok.
No.
I
Yeah.
really, it's just not for me. Now, if you want to dance around on TikTok and you've got 10,000 followers, hey, good luck to you. I don't need, that's not what I'm about, right? What I'm about is telling you the cold, hard truth, right? And I've spoken to so many crying mothers over the years. I've lost count, right? Hundreds of them, and it's because I tell them the truth and how it is, right? And I told you about the whole Baker Act thing. So I told 2 days after after I buried my father, I had a family that was Baker Acted. I was there with the cops and the paramedics, and I watched them strap her to a gunny and take them away. So when I tell families, I know the Baker Act, I know behavioral health issues. Trust me, I know that shit. I've been through it. I've
Yeah.
seen it. I've felt it personally. I've also been through it with hundreds of other families. So
Mhm.
when I speak to you, I speak to you from the heart, but I also speak to you from experience of how this is and how it works. And if you want a lawyer that's jumping around on TikTok making a fool of themselves, I'm not your guy. If you want somebody who's going to tell you how it is because I've experienced it, yeah, I want to have a conversation with you. And you can, and I also have a bunch of resources I'm going to give to you for free so you can get the information that you need. That's another part of my mission, right? Not just sharing. I mean, I love doing podcasts, but just about every single day of the week, I put out at least one video, right? And sometimes I might be just getting out of the gym and I'm still gross and wearing a baseball cap. And I'm like, I got this idea. I want to share it with you, right? Had a call from a family the other day. And I give them real information based on real cases, not stuff that you can, find on Google or Chat GPT. This is how the law works in the real world. Because you can go online and read the law as well as I can. Let me tell you how it really works, what you
Yeah.
can expect, and what you should be doing. And if you want to have a conversation about that, call us. We'll talk to you for free. So I think it's about being vulnerable, but it's also about giving value,
Yeah.
right? I think that helps with your credibility is giving value. And I tell families, look, if you call us and we speak to you and we don't think that you need us, we're going to tell you, you don't need us. Save your money. Here's what you could be doing, right? Maybe you could do an intervention. I'm going to give you the name of the best interventionist that I know. You want a treatment center and your loved one's willing to go and stay long enough, which is a challenge. Here's 3 treatment centers I would send my own family members to. You need
Yeah.
a really great clinician. I got you. This is the person I call when I know there's a problem in my family. So
Yeah.
you can have that and you don't have to pay me for it. I'll give it to you for free. If you want to hire us to do legal services, that's a different story. This is how I feed my family and, well, my other team members, right? By selling legal services. But
Yeah.
if you don't need us, and my team will tell you if you don't need us, or if we're just not the right law firm for you, or if we don't think we can even help you because you don't have a case, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
And
I
my
love
team knows that. We do not, for lack of a better word, bullshit people. We tell them the truth.
yeah. It's
That's
a
how it has to be.
And it's hard to find that, like with the theme of I feel like this show today has been why so many law firms aren't doing that, whether it's their own perspective, their own mental health, or, just not able to give the cold hard facts. So I actually find that to also be a little bit of vulnerability and value, as you mentioned, because sometimes people aren't willing to give it to you straight. And that's one of my favorite parts about who you are and what you all provide. This has been so valuable. Thank you so much. I want all of our listeners to go follow you. You never know when you need a mark in your life. It may come up unexpectedly. You may meet someone that you can also support and connect Mark with. I know that I'm definitely going to stay with you, connected with you, Mark. So thank
We're definitely going to stay connected.
Yay. This has been
Oh,
so great. So, can you tell our listeners how they can connect with you, where they can find you online, and how they can also hear your valuable videos too?
mm, thank you. So the main website is, and I think it's all up here, which is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com, mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. And you'll see on the front page a nice video of me and my wife. And other, if for some reason you can't find the website, just Google me. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Vimeo. Right, you'll find all my content. That video goes on all of those social media platforms every single day. So just Google Attorney Mark Astor, Florida. You'll find me.
Love it. Thank you so much. And for our multitasking listeners, we have all the links in the show notes below. You can DM me. I will personally connect you with Mark, or I can always send you his URL as well. So thanks so much again. I really appreciate it. This was such a great episode.
Thank you, Caitlin. Lovely to see you again.
Thanks.